I'm Glenn Noble, and tonight you're watching Sacred Spaces. Tonight we're in the western suburbs, and we're with Emma Price from Wyndham City Council and Paul Balassone from Melbourne Water. Now, Emma, tell us a bit about the project.
Great, so thanks Glenn. Here we are standing on the Main Outfall Sewer Reserve at the pilot park that's been created for the Greening the Pipeline project. So this park is to showcase the potential of this reserve. So we're between the communities of Williams Landing and Wyndham Waters, and this park has really been an opportunity to bring these communities together and to show the potential of what we can do with this fantastic old piece of water infrastructure for the future of the communities.
Paul, just put the whole park into a historical context, please.
Okay, so the Main Outfall Sewer is a component of a vast sewage network that was built in 1892 and between 1892 and 1897. And the Main Outfall Sewer itself extends 27 kilometres, and it basically conveyed raw sewage between the Spotswood pumping station and all the way to the Western Treatment Plant for treatment. And it was decommissioned in 1993.
So at its time, it was a major engineering feat.
Overall, the Melbourne sewage network was, by world standards, quite advanced, as most cities overseas at the time were simply discharging raw sewage into open waterways and the sea. The Melbourne system was quite holistic in its nature. It actually considered collection as much as treatment.
Fantastic. Okay. So Emma, if I'm over to you, so when did Wyndham City Council and Water decide to start turning this into a park? What was the process?
So since the decommissioning of the moss, there's been a number of studies that Melbourne Water have undertaken to look at what can we do with this piece of infrastructure now and into the future. And one of those studies talked about using the moss to increase livability within these communities. So the moss, as Paul said, 27 kilometres, runs through most of Melbourne's west. It now has the Federation Bike Trail on it, which is an important piece of active transport infrastructure. It means that cyclists can go from Werribee all the way into Brooklyn, and with the extension of the Fed Trail in the coming years, all the way into the city. And so being positioned as it is, with its east-west positioning, it also crosses a number of river and creek systems, so there's an opportunity there to enhance the condition of the water that's going into those creeks by using the moss to harvest stormwater and then use it to irrigate the spaces that we create in the park.
But I love this space. I mean, I think it's fantastic that you've just created this out of an open sewer. So tell me a little bit about that process. How did that all start? What was the consultation, with the community?
Right, so the community where we are at the moment, between Williams Landing and Wyndham Waters, this is a very new community. About 10 years on one side, about 5 years on the other side. So as part of the process, Melbourne Water did a lot of consultation with the residents in this area to see what kind of things they'd like to see. So part of that's been a process of going, what is this thing? Understanding what is this thing that's in their backyard that's kind of fenced off and looks pretty ugly and weird, and understanding the historical importance of this structure, that we can't just go in and bulldoze it and create something. We need to work with this beautiful structure and find a way to reimagine the future with it. And so there's been a number of events, face-to-face consultation, and we have a website where we do online consultation, working closely with the communities and the residents groups.
So what we'd like to do is basically, if you guys can take me a bit on a guided tour of this park, and just point out the main highlights of the project.
Yep, that would be great.
Okay, well, let's go.
Okay.
Right. We're now joined by David Howard from GHDWoodhead. David, over to you.
Thanks, Glenford. At GHDWoodhead, we're engaged by Melbourne Water in partnership with Wyndham City Council and Vic Roads to explore a pilot project on the moss to improve the livability of an existing asset that was disused. A really exciting project to showcase what's possible for repeat projects along the 27-kilometre spine. And a key requirement of the brief was to basically create an activation space for the community to use, whilst also providing a livable space with significant greening for cooling, shade and amenity, as well as linkages to the bike path that sits next to the moss, and some fitness equipment so that the community could basically use that equipment in everyday life. GHD worked closely with all stakeholders involved, including the community, to explore the ideas and concepts that the community wanted to see in this park. So it was a great example of community co-design.
And there's a lot there, David. So in terms of the actual features of the park, maybe you can take us through the features, some of the highlights of those features.
Sure. So a key element of the park is down the central spine, there is a stormwater treatment system which treats water from below ground, and when we get a rainfall event, the water's pumped to the surface and treated through a sand filter. That treated water then enters a storage and is used for irrigation of the park when required. In addition to that, we have a whole range of features which include DDA compliant paths, we have grass areas, garden beds, deciduous and non-deciduous trees. We also have, as I said, fitness equipment, seating, we have drinking fountains, and a whole range of other areas for sitting and enjoying the park.
Yeah, fantastic. I'd like to bring you in on this. What was your process and your part in all this, in getting this all done?
So my role within council is working closely with Wyndham City Council as project partners, and leading the project group who are involved in the project, which is Vic Roads, City West Water, and the project is also supported by the Greening the West initiative. And a really important part of my role is working with the community. So it's working with them to educate them about what is this place, what is this Main Outfall Sewer that's in their backyard. A lot of the community here are quite new to the area, so they don't understand the significance yet. So some of that's the education part of it, and then about the visioning about what can we do, what would people like to see in this space, and how would they like to use the space. So the Fed Trail bike path is a really important part of this space, so we need to design the space in a way that has a mix of use for people. So from the cyclists who are, some of them are commuter cyclists, some of them are sports cyclists who love, zooming along. It's a really fantastic bike path to ride on. It's quite high up. You get really nice, clear, long sight lines. It's quite unusual for Melbourne to have such a long expanse of cycle path where you're not, it's completely off-road. It's quite safe for most of its length. And we're working so that we've got a really good combination of use, so it's a flexible space that will be fit for use for the community now and into the future.
Okay. And how long was the whole process, the consultation process and the building process? How long now?
Well, there's been a number of different reports that Melbourne Water have commissioned over the years, and that involved different stages of consultation with different community groups and different partners like council, and the other two councils that the Moss Reserve goes through. It goes through a small section of Brimbank City Council, and it goes through a small section of Hobsons Bay City Council. So there's been a consultation that's been going on for a number of years, and then GHDWoodhead really led the phase of consultation to do with the design of this park.
David, over to you. So from now, where do you want to go to next in terms of showing us one of the highlights of the park? Where would you like to go?
Yeah, we can have a look at some of the key features. So the stormwater treatment beds might be a good example.
Okay.
So let's go have a look at those.
Okay, we'll do. So David, tell me about what's actually happening under these gum beds.
Yeah, no worries, Glenford. This is a stormwater treatment system, and it basically removes contaminants from the stormwater, and we basically pump the stormwater up to the surface. It filters through these plants and the sand into an underground storage, which is within the moss. So the moss is being repurposed to treat and hold stormwater, which is then reused on the landscape. Now, effectively, it's a great way of saving potable water. So the alternative source of water, being stormwater, is used on the plants from under this particular sand filter, and it helps greening the landscape, which is a really important element of this particular project. We find that as a municipality, the Wyndham Council have a very significant or a very low rainfall historically, and as a result, the landscape's very dry. So this project offers us a great opportunity to green a space that the community can enjoy and provide shade and amenity. So that's a really important feature of this particular park.
Sure. And I mean, and this is a pilot project, isn't it? So obviously the idea is that this project itself can be used as a as an example of what can be done, for further projects.
Correct. Yeah, this is a great example of how we can repurpose the moss in particular, or in any challenging environment, whether it be over the top of roads or rail corridors, that we can repurpose the landscape and reuse a valuable source of stormwater. And we'd like to use this project as an example of how to use the moss and the remaining 27 kilometres in a sensible and practical way.
So David, tell us about this area.
Glenford, this area is really an active play zone for kids, so an opportunity for them to have fun in the park. What we've done with this part of the park is we've put in strategic rocks throughout the park, as well as she oaks, which as they mature will provide great shade and areas for kids to hide, run and play. So it's effectively a really great place for kids to come and play, something a little bit different from some of the other parts of the park.
And has there been a great uptake on this area so far?
Yeah, we've noticed with the pilot opening that kids were using this area. I think it's a great opportunity for kids to get out of their homes and come and play in a really active space. And that was the idea behind this part of the park. And it's a common part of many parks these days, is to create active zones for kids to come and play in a non-traditional playground environment. Sure.
No. And it looks very, very natural. It looks like great fun as well. And obviously the she oaks will grow in time.
Yes, exactly. And the idea is to introduce some hardy plants into the landscape, as whether they be succulents or native grasses, to complement and soften the landscape.
David, where are we now?
We're in a unique part of the park where the community have given us some great ideas around things they'd like. And in this part of the park we've got bike parking for users of the park, of the bike path to come and enjoy the park. We've got a nice seat for people to sit after having a rest, a drinking fountain, and also, as requested by the community, we've put in some really great fitness equipment so people can come and exercise and enjoy the beautiful weather we've got here today.
Right. And that was over a process of how long did that take, or that consultation?
Yeah, the consultation was probably over a period of 3 to 6 months, and through a range of unique both online surveys, open workshops, and mail dropouts that were able to gauge what the community really wanted to see here. So I think it's a really practical space. It's safe for kids with the soft fall rubber, and great interface with the bike path so that people can come and have a rest.
Yeah, and I noticed that also it's been used quite effectively. Even while we've been here, people have been coming onto the exercise machines. On this soft part, it's well used.
Exactly. Yeah, the kids are having a great time using it, and I think it's a great investment. This part of the park.
So Paul, welcome back.
Thank you.
I'd like to talk to you and David about the heritage aspect of design, and how you've been able to combine those two.
One of the key features of this project has been engaged with some agency stakeholders, such as Heritage Victoria. The Main Outfall Sewer is on a state register, so that affords its, protection at a state level. And so the design had to incorporate elements that Heritage Victoria, as indeed ourselves, feature quite significant. And one example just behind us is the balustrading, and something as simple as a line of sight is important to keep the old in sight with the new.
Absolutely, yeah. David, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think we've done a great job there with the balustrading to retain that line of sight. Another key element was when we were modifying the moss, not to penetrate the moss in too many locations, and burying it was seen as preserving it. So by building over the top, we haven't damaged the asset, we've preserved it.
Right, okay. Paul?
And I guess in the context of a pilot project, this is, this helps sort of create a bit of a line of sight for all stakeholders as to what is possible, what can be achieved holistically, because we still have 27 kilometres of
Indeed, yes,
of
yeah.
main sewer to deal with. That in itself presents a challenge, but often it's the opportunity therein
Yeah.
that holds the key to overall success.
Sure. David?
I'd like to also point out that the bridge we're standing on is in fact a floodway bridge. So you'll find that in a significant flood event, this bridge will convey water over the top of the moss.
Right.
So a key feature part of this park design was to retain this particular floodway bridge. Whilst it may not carry any heritage significance, I'll just point that out that it was a key feature of the design.
Yeah,
We needed to retain the function.
Right. So Emma, what's next?
So the next stage
The
of
next
the
stage,
project
yes, please, yes.
we're doing master planning for the Zone 5 section of the pipeline. We're working with stakeholders, community groups, other local governments to create a vision of how we can transform this space. So we've had a really great success from the pilot project,
Yeah.
and what we're looking to do is to replicate certain sections of that along the Moss Reserve
Fantastic.
to create opportunities for the community to come together, connect.
Right. And are you getting much support for that, the next step, would you say?
Yeah, look, there's great support from both from the community. They really want to come along and do things to help us to improve this space. We had a community group here on a Sunday who planted 11,000
Wow.
reeds and grasses in
Yeah,
a
that's
swale that
wonderful.
adjoins the Moss Reserve.
Yep.
We've had local school groups down here studying frogs and doing mural art with a local artist, and they're really interested in visioning what we can do with this old bit of infrastructure that backs onto their school. We've got a local community interested in planting community gardens along here,
right.
so that they've got an opportunity to both grow their own vegetables and
Right.
fruit, but also as an opportunity for them to get together and
Right.
meet.
Yeah. So in many ways, this is just the beginning of a project that could go on for many, many years.
That's right. Well,
Yeah.
it's 27 kilometres long, the Main Outfall Sewer. We've just done 100 metres, so there's plenty of opportunity.
Yeah. Fantastic, thank you.
Great.
Greening the Pipeline is a great example of when several organisations come together to create a vibrant community space. What once was an open sewer is now community parkland. But it is only a pilot, and more deserved to come in its place. This is Sacred Spaces, and I'll see you next week.